The sound of roaring engines echoed across the dusty roadside diner, cutting through the lazy hum of an afternoon sun. A dozen bikers, men dressed in leather and tattoos, their laughter loud and unrestrained, filled the air with swagger and noise. But all that noise died in an instant when the door creaked open, and a small figure stepped in. A little girl, no more than 8, walked slowly through the doorway, her face pale and streaked with tears. In her trembling hands, she held a small pistol that looked far too heavy for her tiny fingers. The room froze. Forks stopped mid-air. Conversations turned to silence. Every man stared at her as she raised the gun and said, voice shaking but steady enough to silence even the loudest of them, "Which one of you is my father?" No one moved. For a moment, it felt like the whole world had stopped breathing. One of the bikers, a burly man with a gray beard and eyes like steel, shifted uneasily in his seat. Another coughed, then went quiet. The girl's arm trembled under the weight of the gun, her small chest heaving with panic and confusion. She looked from face to face, her lips trembling. "My mother," she said. "One of you is my father. She died last night." The room was hit by a silence so deep it hurt. The old jukebox in the corner clicked softly, the sound of a half-played record stuck in its groove. A few bikers looked down, guilt flashing in their eyes. The bearded man stood up slowly, hands raised, his voice rough but calm. "Kid, put that down. Nobody's gonna hurt you." She shook her head fiercely, tears streaming down her face. "You already did. One of you did." And in that moment, nobody knew what she meant, but every man in that room felt the weight of her words. The story began long before that day, in the small, forgotten town of Red Hollow. The girl's mother, Emily, had lived a hard life. She was the daughter of a waitress, and by the time she was 17, she'd already seen too much of what the world could take from a person. She met a group of bikers passing through town one summer, loud, wild, and full of rebellion. Among them was Jack Wolf Turner, a man with kind eyes hidden behind a rough face. Emily fell for him, hard and fast, like a moth to a flame. But by the time she realized he was gone, he'd already left without knowing she was pregnant. She raised her daughter, Lily, alone, working double shifts, fighting poverty, and protecting her from the truth as long as she could. But life was cruel. Emily fell ill, and when she knew her time was running out, she gave Lily a single piece of paper, a faded photo of a group of bikers in front of their motorcycles. "One of them is your father," she whispered weakly. "Find him. Tell him you exist. You deserve to know." When Emily passed away, Lily buried her with her own hands behind the small church on the edge of town. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just picked up her backpack, took her mother's old pistol, and walked. 3 days later, she found the diner. Jack Turner sat in the corner, nursing a cup of cold coffee. He hadn't been the same since he'd left Red Hollow all those years ago. He'd seen too many faces, made too many mistakes. His crew, the Iron Serpents, weren't saints. They'd broken laws, hearts, and sometimes bones. But Jack carried a particular kind of guilt he never spoke of, the face of a young girl he'd left behind before he even knew she existed. So when that little girl raised a gun and asked the question, he already knew. Deep down, he knew before she even spoke. His throat tightened. He took a step forward. "Put the gun down, sweetheart," he said softly. "You don't need to do this." She looked at him, eyes full of anger and grief. "Did you know my mom? Emily?" He froze. The name hit him like a knife to the gut. Around him, the bikers exchanged uneasy glances. Jack's jaw tightened. "Yes," he said finally, voice breaking. "I knew her." "Then you're my father." The gun clattered to the floor. Lily collapsed to her knees, sobbing so hard it shook her body. Jack dropped to his knees too, pulling her into his arms even though she resisted at first. But the fight drained out of her, and she let him hold her. For the first time in years, he cried, 2 tears cutting through the grime of a life lived wrong. That night, Jack sat alone by his motorcycle while Lily slept inside the diner booth. His crew gathered around, quiet. "She's your kid, isn't she?" one of them asked. He nodded slowly. "Yeah. And I wasn't there." He looked up at the sky, his voice hoarse. "We spent years trying to prove we're tough. But none of us had the guts to stay when someone needed us." One of the younger bikers kicked the dirt. "What are you gonna do now?" Jack looked through the diner window at Lily, sleeping with her tiny hands still gripping her mother's old locket. "I'm gonna be her father," he said. "For once in my damn life, I'm gonna do something right." Months passed. Jack left the gang behind. He moved back to Red Hollow, taking Lily with him. Life wasn't easy. He found work repairing bikes, scraping together enough to build a small home near the same church where Emily rested. Every day, he taught Lily something new: how to fix an engine, how to ride a bicycle, how to smile again. Slowly, the light came back into her eyes, but ghosts have a way of coming back. One night, as thunder rolled across the hills, the iron serpents showed up angry that Jack had left them, accusing him of betrayal. They wanted him back, or they wanted him gone. Permanently, Jack stood on his porch, Lily behind him, clutching his hand. The men he once called brothers now looked like strangers. Their leader sneered. "You think you can just walk away?" Jack stepped forward. "Yeah. I do. I've got something to live for now." The standoff was tense, rain pouring down, headlights cutting through the dark. Then, from behind Jack, Lily spoke softly but firmly. "He's not going anywhere." Something in her voice, something fierce and unbroken, made even the hardest of them hesitate. The leader turned his gaze to her, then to Jack, and without another word, he revved his engine and drove off. The others followed, leaving only the sound of rain and the beating of two hearts that finally felt free. Years later, people in Red Hollow would tell the story of the little girl who walked into a diner with a gun and walked out with a father. They'd talk about how a man once lost to his past found redemption in the eyes of a child who refused to give up. On the anniversary of Emily's death, Jack and Lily stood at her grave. Lily placed fresh flowers and whispered, "I found him, Mom. You were right. He just needed to remember who he was." Jack knelt beside her, his voice rough with emotion. "And she reminded me what it means to be a man." The wind rustled through the trees, soft and forgiving. The world kept turning, but for once, both of them stood still, knowing they had finally found home, and in that quiet moment, under the golden light of dusk, the story of pain and loss turned into one of love and redemption, a little girl's courage giving a broken man a reason to live again.